Hey guys, King Charmander here. Today I'll be your judge, your jury, and your analyst. And today I bring to you the Walrein Community Analysis for Open Great League. So, as you know, the Spheal Community Day is going to be on Sunday, so I'm going to take a break from shoutcasting, and I'm going to do what I usually do, is analysis. So here, I will analyze Walrein's place in the lead, switch, and closer, and then we're just going to do all shield scenarios from the Matrix as I usually do. This is very quick. We're going to run through each one to see how it is because it is a top Metamon. Well, now it will be a top Metamon. However, the problem when you have an ice type is you just throw fighters into it. The reason why Walrein is so interesting is because Icicle Spear, its new move, plus Earthquake is a really great coverage moveset, and there's no two typings that actually resist both. So rather than put your head and confuse you with what IVs you should go after, let's really find out if IVs matter. As I always say, please consider contributing ppoke.com. So my mental health tip for the day is to check up on your friends and family. Omnicron is running around everywhere. Yes, it sounds like a Transformer. Actually, Omnicron sounds like Unicron. If you're a Transformers, if you watched a little bit of Transformers series, you know what I'm talking about. But what we have here is, yes, make sure you take a look at your friends. Check up on your friends and family. Make sure you're doing safe, just so there's no surprises. It's better that you prepare for the worst than to know nothing at all. Sound about right? And as I always say, I said I would remind everyone every week, but also on the therapist as well as the athletic spectrum, COVID's made it really difficult, especially for kids learning. As a school therapist, I have a lot of kids that are absent and don't want to come into school, which is perfectly viable. As a high school wrestling coach, Omnicron has taken out half of our team. Yet, I know I check in on all of them, and all of them are doing okay. So make sure you check up on your friends, your family, and your kiddos, and make sure they're doing well. If you haven't been tested, make sure you get tested. If you're able to get vaccinated, you should probably get vaccinated. And before everyone's like, oh, King of Charmanders, oh, you're like, no, I served 7 years in the military. If I'm 17 years old and I can get 8 random vaccines stabbed into me, no, literally, when we're in the military, like usually in the first few days of boot camp, you'll go to medical, and they will line you up like ducks, and you will get vaccinated by 8 other things that aren't freaking COVID. But you know what? 8 more is still more riskier than 1. Well, it's what it is. If you want to serve your country, if you want the honor, then you better shut up, follow orders. So it's what it is. And also, I don't have pity on people that are unvaccinated right now because this is actually affecting kids. If you look up at the news, there are actually kids in the pediatrics hospitals being hospitalized because of COVID. So, if it's affecting kids, that's when King of Charmanders has no pity anymore. Make sure you take care of yourself, make sure you take care of others. But also, please consider the fact that affecting others is why you should probably follow the guidelines and why you should probably consider getting vaccinated. Because you already have like 7 different vaccines thrown into you already. Seriously, y'all went to school and you already have 4 different vaccines or more, if not, thrown into you already. Why didn't you ask back then? Now you're asking now. I mean, it's politics, right? Because, you know, I served 7 years in the military. You play plenty of politics when you're a serviceman, right? Those of you that served, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's just my message out there. Please take care of yourselves. Please take care of your kiddos. Take care of others. And make sure you check up on everyone. And without further ado, let's get started with the analysis. Alright, so here is the analysis. We're going to do the quick overall league closers and switches. It's not going to be too much into it. I'm just going to look for each one position and give you the down low of where it is. Obviously, Ice type has a lot of coverage across the meta, which is why Walrein ranks so freaking high. As you see, Walrein and its shadow version are a top 5 mon, with each one doing things differently, but there's not much of anything too complicated about it. No, seriously. You'll lose to fighters. You'll also lose to things that resist you, i.e., things like Jellicent, and of course other water ice hybrid tanks. The issue is that Earthquake is such a great coverage move. Ground in general covers so many types that Walrein, despite the fact that yes, you could get Rock Slide to death by Galar and Stunfisk, you have coverage because of Earthquake. So overall, it's incredibly powerful. In fact, in the lead, Walrein's one of the top leads, still putting its powerful position, taking out all the flyers. And the thing that makes Walrein such a crazy mon and definitely going to shake the meta, as you see, Shadow Needle Queen. So the ground poison typing, or just poison typing in general, gets absolutely trucked by this new meta with Walrein in it because you have coverage with Earthquake. So, for those of you, like me, that power up Shadow Nidoqueens, you're probably not going to see a lot of them running around after Walrein releases. It's because it's too dangerous to run a poison typing when this giant walrus is around just destroying everyone's lives. Great League. Also, if you look here, it's basically the #1 freaking switch in Great League now. With Icicles, is it Icicle or Icicle? With Icicle Spear, it's a Body Slam clone, so you're able to break a ton of shields, and it's Eclipse Galarian Stunfisk as the top stage switch. The reason why is because Galarian Stunfisk used to be the top stage switch, but the thing is, with Earthquake, because you cover so much of the meta, you're going to probably see a lot of fighter back rows, or you're going to see the return of double fighters, etc., triple fighter, blah, 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 just because Walrein is out. It's really that freaking powerful. That, or you better have a Walrein counter to your team. Or if not, 1 or 2 more counters. This thing's probably going to be really popular at Open Great League when it comes back, and I definitely plan on making content with it when it comes out. Probably in the same day, you will see a battle with it, because I already have a Spheal already built for it. So in the same day, I'll release some battles with it, and take a look and see, is it really that good? A feature, and just my personal opinion with it. Because you're going to have everyone releasing content, so, I might as well get my own spin on it. Freaking, follow the bandwagon, get the views, but at the same time, I want to bring a little bit of value to it, because things can be a little more complicated than they are. But as you see here, as a switch, it's incredibly powerful. Takes the reign as basically the #1 safe switch in Great League because of this coverage. You're going to break shields, or you're going to nuke through shields, and if it's a Bastion gets trucked by a Walrein, so there's no mercy there. And the closer, as you see here, the closer is the weakest spot for Walrein. So Walrein smacks down at number 44 as the closer. If you try to look it up and you try to search it up, the Shadow one performs better. Should you have a Shadow versus a regular one? We'll find that out as well in this. However, as you see in the closer, doesn't do that well for the fact that there's a lot of fighters in the back row. And also, hello Bastion, I like you, I see you, and I want to kill you. However, the Venusaur double Steel Core is going to be afraid of this thing, because it has the ability to take out things like Bastion, etc., other steel types, as long as it has shield advantage. And it's very spammy, and it's super good. If you look at the performance grades across the board, it's basically A+ across the board. So it's a must-have if you want to compete in Open Great League. You definitely need this thing. If you've been playing for a while like me, you probably already have one ready anyway, so you probably won't have that issue. But for those of you that don't, and you need to play Spheal Community, you probably should play Spheal Community Day. Alright, so here's the ppoke.com matrix. So I'm going to analyze both the regular one and the shadow one. As you see here, we have all types of IV spreads. The default one, rank 1, and everything in between. And I also have the shadow ones in here as well. So, do you need a shadow? Do you not? Let's find out. I already put the Great League meta to the right, where I already populated it over here for the matrix. And as you see here, this thing is nuts. In the 2 shield, it can be all versions of the Azumarill, Coffer could be Dugongs, Diggersbees, of course. Takes out the flying meta, because of course ice is super effective against flying. And as you see, the poison type meta just screams bloody murder when you see it. It also has a unique ability to take out things like Galvantula. You have chances against things like Greedent. High defense, or like a high IV one. It's a very interesting Pokemon, because as you see here, your opponent will likely straight Icicle Sphere, but you can Earthquake to death. So in the 2 shield against things like Galvantula, this is a pretty interesting matchup, because if you can win it if you have a high IV with defense. Now when people say oh my gosh, I need one that's going to beat Azumarill, right? That's more like clickbait, because I already did the research, and here's the thing about Azumarill. Depending on if it's the Play Rough run, if it's Ice Beam Hydro Pump, you're likely going to beat it anyways. However, if it's the Play Rough variation, that's when things get dicey. So here's what happens. So we're just going to use the default IV, for example, because they're okay, both the rank 1 and the slight attack one can beat Azumarill, as you see here. The reason why is because of the fact that you basically need the same pattern. You need to double bait with Icicle Spear, and then you need to Earthquake. So as you see in all scenarios, or in the zeros, if you have energy lead, it's going to be a simultaneous KO. So you need a little bit of energy lead, or it's going to be a simultaneous KO, as you see here. This depends if the Azu is running Play Rough. If it's not, you essentially just truck it to death with a Earthquake. So you just literally Earthquake it to death, because Ice Beam and Hydro Beam and Hydro Pump are resisted to hell. So as you see here. So it's also very situational. For everyone out there that's like, oh my gosh, like IVs are overrated. No, seriously, they are. They matter, but they matter in very specific scenarios and in very specific times. Like anything close to a 500 rating is still very, very like hard. Like a rank 1 Shadow Walrein, yes, you can take out the Ox's defense. However, a 500 rating is insanely close. And if they get one counter through, you die. And they can eat a Icicle Sphere very comfortably. You have to shield Earthquake. So just putting that out there. So as you see here, very powerful across the board, but very situational. I would go for the highest rank you can and keep a high attack one. If you really want both, just because you want the high attack one just so that you can win CMP against a lot of scenarios. And you want the higher rank one just because if you want that bulk, that's fine. As I mentioned to you, there's very minimal differences between both. No, seriously. As you see here, if you look at a little bit of attack plus the break and bulk points are literally the same. And like I mentioned, it has to be a very, very straight shot scenario. So, because Go Battle League is also broken and never consistent, you don't really want to rely on it. But, back to the analysis. As you see here, Walrein is also beat for being able to take out Mew. It can take out Mew. It can take out Alolan Ninetales. Yes, Alolan Ninetales resist Icicle Sphere, but you could take it out. Yep. Just because you double resist Powder Snow. And they don't. Which is basically the reason why. As you see, you still get trucked by things like Obstagoon, Registeel. Of course, Steel types and Fighting types will give you a hard time. That's why you lose against that. Charmers can also run through you. So Charm 2 Shield strats are mighty, and Charm 2 Shield strats can go through you. As you see in the 2 Shield, they can straight 2 Shield through your way through. The good thing is that one turn can flip this scenario. So in the 2 Shield, if you... as you see here, you get to the point where this one's going to die. However, what happens in this scenario, they're going to double shield, but you have to land Earthquake. If you have a little bit of energy lead right here, you can actually win because you get the Earthquake off. So this is why IVs are just like meh, because it's just like if you have 2 shield Charmer, you're going to go through a hard time anyways. As you see, a high attack Walrein or Walrein Shadow is able to take out Talonflame. This is what, it's still a very, very close, as you see here. 3 turns of difference can flip the scenario. So, as you see here, you have to call Brave Bird, or they have to Brave Bird you in order to KO. What you can do is force all the shields, then you can farm down this Burb and then kill it. However, the difference between that one is that, yes, the Shadow one can kill it. So, non-Shadow, you lose against Talonflame. Shadow, you win against Talonflame in the 2 shields. And there are very little few scenarios here and there where you could beat things like Umbreon, etc. Generally, just bank that you're going to lose against Umbreon. But as you see here, very, very powerful. Takes out Venusaur, Wishcash. You lose to Charmers and Fires. So 2 shield, you still beat Azumarill in a lot of scenarios. And no scenario really plays out 100% of the time. So that's why always be wary of Go Battle League. But that's the 2 shield scenario. As you see, very powerful in lead. Also very powerful in switch just because it has a lot of chance against a lot of scenarios. Do IVs matter? Not really. Like what King of Charmanders mentioned. It's very, very subjective and depends on how the battle actually plays out. These ratings are too close. So, just really depends. Can you beat Azumarill? Yes, you will beat Azumarill. I don't know why I have some people are like, oh my god, like, if you want to beat Azumarill, have high, low, high attack. I'm like, you win against Azumarill and like, here's the player friend. I'm like, and here's the rank 1 Walrein. If you look at it, like, bro, like, you convincingly win the 2 shield pretty hard. They have to double shield Earthquake. And even if they don't, you still have plays, so it doesn't really matter. So, and you don't lose CMP either. You don't lose CMP either. So, like, I'm kind of just scratching my head, but it's what it is. So, if anybody gives you a hard time with IVs, it's overrated. IVs are overrated, at least for Walrein too. It's literally the reason why it's so good is because of Icicle Spear and Earthquake. All right, so here's the 2 shield. I ran 2 shield already. Here's the 1 shield. As you see with the 1 shield. In the 1 shield, you could beat Abomasnow with the regular version. With the Shadow version, you lose. And this whole thing about beating Azumarill, this is why my brain is like, what? Because as you see in the 2 shield, you beat it. In the 1 shield, you beat it with all IV combinations. There's no difference. I don't get why, yeah. Clickbait. Clickbait is strong. With Bastion, though, if you a high attack, and the same thing with a high attack Walrein, you lose with a high attack Walrein against Bastion. Because you need to shield. You know what I mean? If you don't shield, here's what happens. Bam, you literally get trucked to death by freaking Smackdown, and Stone Edge breaks your shield. So, as you see here, they're in the 1 shield, very reflective of the 2 shield, very specific matchups here and there. A rank 1 Walrein can also beat Cofagrigus in the 1 shield. So I don't know why people are drawing away from rank 1s, or close to rank 1s. So, I'd say like rank 1 through 5 is probably where you're going to reach this point at with Coffer but the Shadow one can beat Coffer as well. You take out Dugong, Diggersby, etc. And the high rank one, or like the regular one, can also beat Greedent in the one shield. As you see here, rank 1 and a high defense can also beat Hypno. Any high attack one can't beat Hypno in the one shield. Okay. Yeah. Like, yeah. And like the amount of misframe. Like, why are people stressing over IVs with Walrein? It's have a high attack one so that you can win the mirror, and then build another one that's a high rank. There's benefits to both. It's really not that complicated. The Shadow one can also beat Shadow Hypno. Generally, you'll see the regular Hypno more, but either way, it's fine. Hypno is not really the main matchup you're going to use Walrein for anyways. It's a nice to kill, though. You can beat the Ice Water tanks with Walrein. As you see with Lapras and Dugong, you have win cons against all of them. With the exception of like high attack ones with Shadow, as you see here. But generally, you'll still lose against the same things. You can beat Mew in the 2 shield, but you might lose in the 1 shield just because of the fact that it has Wild Charge. Wild Charge still hurts a Walrein. Remember, super effective hurts a lot, and Wild Charge does a lot of damage, so it's going to hurt a lot. You still beat things like Shadow Nidoqueen, Alola Ninetales. You're still going to lose against fighters. However, interesting thing here is that Walrein regular version with a high IV or semi-high attack will be able to beat things like Politoed. The Shadow version, this is what keeps the Shadow version interesting. You could beat a Skarmory in the 1 shield, which you don't. I wouldn't want to be in the 1 shield against a Skarmory anyways, and have a Shadow one to begin with. So it's better to just have all the versions if you can. You beat Trevenant and Tropius, of course. In the 1 shield, you will lose against Umbreon convincingly. Also, Venusaur, Wishcash, Wigglytuff. In the 1 shield, you can actually beat Charmers versus the 2 shield. Just because 2 shield Charm Strat is still very powerful. But as you see against things like Sylveon and against Wigglytuff, you can beat Charmers in the 1s. So you lose in the 2s, you win in the 1s. And that's pretty much the gist of the 1 shield. Nothing super notable. You win it, you beat what you're generally super effective against, other than the matchups I mentioned before, which aren't super prevalent compared to like the super meta that literally the 2 and the 1 shield variations of all the IVs I mentioned. Blanket statement, beat. Alright, now here are the zeros. I already ran it. So in the zeros is Walrein's, of course, its weakest. The zeros is its weakest area. However, it's still able to beat a few things. Azumarill. Literally all IV spreads are able to take out Azumarill. Yeah, that's what blows my mind. Well, the Ice Beam Hydro Pump one, and as you see here, these ratings are really close. As far as Walrein, well, not Shadow, but the regular one, 489 is really close, which means a little bit of chip damage can take out Azumarill, or you simultaneously KO with the 1 shield. The rank 1 can simultaneously KO in the closer. So it's very confusing as to why Azu is the highlight. It's overpowered. That's really the spin behind it. Walrein, with its new moveset, is going to be overpowered. There's no way to sugarcoat that. I mean, it went from like rank, 5400 to like the top. And as you see here, very powerful, still beats like Ice Mirror Meats, Drifblim, Flyers, Ground types, etc. Whatever, super effective. The regular version can take out Hypno in the zeros as well as the Shadow version in comparison to the other 2. You can also beat things like Manabuzz, of course. Alolan Marowak because you have Earthquake. Shadow Nidoqueen, Alolan Ninetales, Flyers, Steel types. You might be able to do a Hail Mary one-shot with Earthquake depending on what you're facing, which is why the Shadow version is able to take out things like Galarian Stunfisk and the regular Stunfisk in the closer, just because of Earthquake with that coverage. And of course, you're going to beat Grass types pretty convincingly as well. You can also beat the Charmers. As you see, you're able to beat Sylveon in the zeros, and you're also able to beat Wigglytuff in the zeros as well. Alright, here's what happens when you have shield advantage. As you see, 1 is zeros. You blow everything to unholy hell. Well, actually, hold on. Okay. So you beat most of everything except like Registeel and Scrafty. Anything that can rival, a lot of things that rival with Power Punch or like Vigoroth, as you see here. Other than that, you pretty much wipe out a majority of the meta. This is a very iffy kind of scenario because this assumes that they don't have energy advantage, etc. But it's still stupid powerful. In the 2 to zeros, obviously, you beat everything in Holy Existence. You blast everything, including Bastiodon. This is literally the one mon where across the board, in 2 to zeros, you basically destroy everything. It used to be G-Fisk. I think there's something else too, but basically in the 2 to zeros, Walrein is freaking amazing and does good. Now, if you have shield advantage in the 2 to 1s, that's when things get a little interesting. However, the only thing that's really notable about the 2 to 1s is that you lose against fighters. and Jellicent. So you lose against Jellicent, you'll also lose against Shadow Champ, Medicham, Alolan Ninetales, can and will charm down you to death. So things like Scrafty, Toxicroak, Umbreon, but even with these matchups with Jellicent, that's a super close matchup. So if Jellicent has Chip, you can beat it in the 2-to-1 advantage. The keyword is can. And also, as you see, you're able to beat Charmers. Umbreon, for some odd reason, just because it's so obscenely thick, is able to live in the... as you see, Walrein loses the 2-0 literally by 8 HP. And this assumes that you can land an Earthquake and you double bait with Icicle Spear. So as you see here, if you eat the it's very... I know it's stupid weird. Like, it's not even necessary, but you know what? It's what it is. Some matchups just be like that. So, as you see, still in the 2-to-1 shield advantage, still very powerful. But this assumes everything works out the same way. But these ratings are so dang high that they'll likely work out that way to begin with. Alright, now breaking bulk points. There's literally not a lot at all. If you look across the board, as you see here, everything is generally the same. So the reason why Walrein is so overpowered now is because of its moves. Not really because of its stats. As you see, stat-wise, Walrein isn't the thickest burb in the world, but literally Powder Snow plus a Body Slam clone, plus a Body Slam clone and Ground, which is one of the best coverage typings of all time, do a ton of damage. As you see, if you're board, the relevant bulk and breakpoints, like, there's really not much of a difference. Most of them are generally the same. And the difference between the ones you wins and lose at is basically Shadow or regular version. As far as bulk points go, there's also not a lot of relative bulk points that really matter. Now, when it comes to matchups like against Galvantula, it's not even the bulk point that makes it. It's really just that extra HP. As you see, 19 and 18, there's really nothing relevant. It's really just because it's a rank 1. So because of the rank 1 stats and that extra HP, it's able to live out and edge out a matchup against things like Galvantula. So don't worry about it. Especially, like I mentioned, most scenarios don't play out 100% like they do unless it's lead and switch. And even then, depending on what matchup you're going against, if you're going to get punched in the face by a fire, you're still going to get punched in the face. I don't know what you're trying to do. If you're trying to beat Azu, you still have to double bait with Icicle Spear or get Earthquakes through in order to win that scenario. And if the bunny doesn't have power play rough anyways, it's probably not going to stay in. It's going to switch out. So, just putting that out there. And that's GG's. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Long story short, Walrein is freaking good. You should get one that's a high rank, also a high attack one, just in case you want to win the mirror match for CMP. As far as the reason why it's so dang overpowered, it's because the new movesets are overpowered. Powder Snow is a great energy generation move that got buffed. Icicle Spear is a Body Slam clone, and Earthquake, like I mentioned, has coverage against steel typings, which ice types normally lose against. But because Walrein has Earthquake, steel types, rock types, you can take care of that. Keyword is can. Of course, this is relatively dependent upon like how the matchup goes, etc. But it's that coverage, the great move coverage, and the spam. That's why Walrein has turned into one of the top meta Pokemon in the game. So it's good. And should you stress about IVs? Not that much at all. Because this assumes that every scenario plays out the way it is. And like I mentioned, unless it's lead and switch and they're locked in, it really just depends. And there are a few matchups, like for example, Galvantula in the 2s. I don't know why people are highlighting Azu, because you literally beat Azu in most of the same scenarios, but everything has to go the same way. You have to bait and you have to Earthquake, or you have to Earthquake 2 shields, or your opponent like decides to eat double Earthquake and you choose violence. So you decide to just Earthquake 2 shields like a madman, and it goes through. But it's what it is. I hope you guys have a wonderful Spheal community day. There's a reason why I'm releasing this, but Walrein is good. Again, get the highest rank you can. Also get a high attack one. It's useful for all leagues, not just Great League. For Ultra and Masters, I'll be doing analysis for Ultra League and Master League when that time comes. The reason I'm doing Great League is because we do have Great League available right now. So some of you in Great League might want to use Walrein because Great League is going to be releasing. So just putting that out there. I will be using it, testing it out, and seeing what teams I can do with Walrein. In fact, I'll do a top team analysis with it. But that's it for now, and I hope you guys enjoyed the analysis. And again, I'll be putting like a top Walrein teams out after this one. So when Walrein Community Day does come out, this is the analysis one, and then I'll be putting a top teams with Walrein out. Then I'll doing analysis on it. So then, there you go. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you have a good idea. Yes, it's good. Yes, go grab it. Screw IVs. IVs do matter, but in very specific scenarios. IVs matter when they matter. Again, just get as much as you can because it's good in all leagues. And then I'll be doing top teams in Great League with Walrein on my next video. So stay tuned for that. Do me a huge favor. Please like and subscribe. As you see here, I don't just do shoutcasts and amazing shoutcasts, but there are 2 Charmanders here. And if you could easily subscribe by putting, see that little box right there, the bottom right that says subscribe? You can easily subscribe by putting your mouse over it and then clicking on subscribe. Really appreciate my current subscribers. You guys are awesome. Again, look out for those Walrein top teams. Good luck in your Battle League sets, and I will see you on the next video.